Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a lovely week. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and things are about to get really confusing because, well, we're gonna have to talk about the multiverse. The latest trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home dropped on Monday, and it included a mind-blowing revelation in regards to the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fans had already thought that Phase 4 would spell big changes for the MCU in the wake of Avengers Endgame, but it looks as though even bigger things are still to come, at least according to Nick Fury. The big twist revealed in the latest trailer was that Mysterio, real name Quentin Beck, isn't from this world. According to Fury, Thanos' snap tore a hole in their dimension, which pulled Beck across from his. We'll ignore the semantics of dimension and parallel world for just 1 second, but Peter follows up the comment by referencing the multiverse explicitly, the name given to the various realities, universes, and continuities that comprise the Marvel Omniverse. Sound confusing? Well, that's because it is. But don't think that it's completely impenetrable. Marvel have been using alternate Earth stories for years, and the MCU itself was already technically one to begin with. So I thought I'd assemble a handy guide for the multiverse and give you all a primer of what to expect before the film comes out. So, what is the multiverse? Well, alternate Earth stories might not be exclusive to comics, but the medium was the first to really master them. DC is perhaps better known for its myriad of parallel dimensions, with there being 52 alternate realities that govern the publisher's universe, but Marvel have spotlighted just as many brilliant stories featuring this specific trope. Whether it's Marvel or DC, both publishers have one key universe situated within each respective multiverse. For DC, this used to be New Earth, but it is now referred to as Prime Earth, while the main Marvel universe is designated Earth 616. There are 52 parallel realities in the DCU at any one time, while there's almost a limitless array of them over at Marvel, owed in part to the sheer array of what-if stories published since 1977. So, how do these alternate Earths tend to differ? Well, they can diverge from the main reality in a whole host of different places, even down to the most acute detail. Some present bold departures from the established canon, like the Ultimate Universe, while others boast only minor differences. The trope effectively affords writers the freedom to put their own stamp on iconic characters, storylines, and even designs themselves. Whether it's by setting the entire universe in the 17th century, bit weird, making every character a zombie, less questionable perhaps, or simply posing the question of what if Spider-Man didn't become a crime fighter? These alternate realities all manage to present a unique twist on the classic Marvel formula, and can even intersect with the main universe depending on the scenario. As was previously established, the main Marvel universe is Earth 616. It's the one featured in the publisher's comics, and the first to feature Earth's mightiest heroes in their traditional guises. Perhaps confusingly, the comics multiverse actually encompasses various other depictions of the Marvel Universe outside of the comics too. That includes the MCU, which has the designation of Earth 199999, meaning that it could potentially even intersect with classic Marvel continuity in the future. It's a lot to chew off, but the important thing to remember is that all these realities basically take place within one giant omniverse. Wait, what's that? They released a clip that claimed the MCU was 616 and Mysterio's from 833. So that means there's a parallel multiverse too. Putting that aside to just 1 second, the MCU is also a fantastic example of how Marvel's alternate Earths can look like. They're all just different interpretations of the same material produced during the 60s, and though the series takes inspiration from both the main reality and several alternate ones, the Ultimate series in particular, bear with, it's still situated within that same singular multiverse. Clearly, between Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Endgame, and Far From Home, the multiverse is experiencing something of a renaissance. Sony Animation's Oscar-winning film took inspiration from classic alternate reality stories to weave its own compelling narrative, while Endgame broached the concept of alternate realities with diverging timelines onset by time travel tinkering. Given how Spider-Man was given his own alternate reality film, however, and with Far From Home set to introduce the MCU's multiverse as well, it stands to reason that some fans are curious as to why Spidey seems to feature in alternate Earth stories more than any other hero. The answer is just that he has, with some of the web-slinger's best storylines stemming from encountering his own counterparts from different dimensions. Quite a few of these comics have only been published over the last decade, to the point where Spider-Man is probably the Marvel character most synonymous with alternate realities. Of course, the interesting thing here is that we could potentially see alternate Marvel heroes come into the equation too. Miles Morales already exists in the main MCU, and may have even aged 5 years by now, but there's a chance we could see Spider-Gwen in the future too, and even the one from Mysterio's world. More on that later. Even though Far From Home is the first Marvel movie to reference the multiverse explicitly, Avengers Endgame actually dealt with it already. The film established that with every subtle alteration of the timeline, the Avengers were actually creating alternate timelines and realities, and Far From Home goes so far as to imply that the snap has fractured the multiverse too. It's far from the fully fledged exploration of the multiverse that could follow Far From Home, but make no mistake, the groundwork has already been laid. Although animated, Disney Plus is set to feature a What If TV series once it launches, and though Marvel Studios will soon have to get familiar with event fatigue, the term given to comics publishers' saturation of big, epic crossover stories, the next logical step is a reality-bending ensemble feature. When will that happen? Well, it's hard to tell, and there's even a chance Spidey could head to an alternate reality in Far From Home. Which brings us nicely, I hope, to Dimensions. In the wake of Far From Home's multiverse tease, there were a few bemused commenters online who didn't seem to get the fuss. 2016's Doctor Strange, at least according to them, had already introduced the concept, but they're committing an easy mistake. Scott Derrickson's supernatural flick may feature lots of trippy, inventive visuals, but the multiverse, it ain't. It actually highlights several different pocket dimensions, realities that exist within our own, such as the dark dimension, meaning there's a delineation to be made between dimension and reality, even if Nick Fury interchanges the term in the trailer for Far From Home. According to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, a dimension is a universe or realm containing space, time, matter, and energy. Asgard and the 9 realms are all technically dimensions, while Strange deals with alternate dimensions such as Dormammu's all the time in the comics. So, going forward, we can expect to see alternate dimensions and alternate universes. The important thing to remember though is that each alternate universe will invariably contain alternate dimensions too, and that's... oh geez, that's a lot. It's clear that Far From Home will position Mysterio as an ally to Spider-Man and Nick Fury, but that would present a huge departure from the comics. Quentin Beck is a longtime Spider-Man villain in most interpretations, and although his intentions appear to be sound in the MCU, fans are right to greet his role with skepticism. Of course, it was only in March that Marvel Studios produced a whole new take on the Skrulls, an alien race of shapeshifters depicted almost exclusively as villains in the comics. They're treated as protagonists in Captain Marvel, and it shows how far the MCU is willing to go in order to provide its own unique spin on the Marvel Universe. Be that as it may, Mysterio is all about deception and misdirection. It's possible he could hail from an alternate reality, but fans would be wise to bet against him being a hero, at least come the end. Beck could be a villain from a different reality, an opportunist from the Earth we've seen so far, or maybe even someone else. The point is that, while he's set to start the film as a hero, he's likely to leave it as a villain. As has been previously mentioned, the multiverse is something of a staple of the superhero genre. It's never been broached in live action though, but now, in the wake of Endgame, Marvel have the perfect time to deliver on the premise. It's a natural progression for the franchise, which has gradually ratcheted up the stakes with each phase, and with the MCU now at its most cosmic, the only place to go after Thanos, at least in terms of escalation, is the Marvel Multiverse. Endgame laid the groundwork with time traveling and the use of the quantum realm, but it also teased another character whose existence is pretty much synonymous with alternate realities, Captain Britain. Brian Braddock was name-dropped by Peggy Carter when Steve Rogers and Tony Stark traveled back to the 1970s, and he's actually a part of the Captain Britain Corps, a force created to protect the multiverse itself from cross-dimensional threats. Other heroes have interacted with alternate worlds all the time, but for Captain Britain, the existence of a multiverse is really important. This is where things get even more interesting though, because Mysterio says he comes from Earth 833. What's so special about that? Well, it's actually the dimension where Captain Britain is Spider-Man, called Spider UK. Could that be why Peter and co head to London? Could we see two Spider-Men on the big screen? The mind boggles. But this all has to be building towards something, right? Endgame writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely caused a bit of a commotion last month when they mentioned their interest in adapting Secret Wars for the MCU. The Russo brothers had already indicated they were fans of the arc beforehand, and given the whole event revolves around the concept of a multiverse, the 2015 version specifically, the steps made in both Endgame and Far From Home brings a Secret Wars film closer to reality. Yes! But what else, apart from Marcus McFeely and the Russo brothers' comments, is there to indicate that Secret Wars will be the next Endgame? Well, quite a bit actually. The MCU has taken inspiration from a wide variety of different sources, but particularly from Jonathan Hickman's stint on The Avengers, which featured the multiverse front and centre up until its finale, which just so happened to be Secret Wars. Hickman's books are my favourite Avengers stories ever, and they all revolved around the idea of incursions, a temporal event where alternate realities encroached onto Earth 616 and threatened the destruction of both realities. Secret Wars saw Doctor Doom wield the power of the Beyonder to create one sole reality within the Omniverse, which he ruled over with an iron grip. Whatever the future holds, it's unlikely that Marvel will do a direct adaptation of Secret Wars. The multiverse does, however, open the door for much of the story's elements to make its way into a future Avengers film, one that could introduce both the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. And that was our video. I hope you enjoyed our little look into the multiverse and what it could bring to the MCU eventually. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Head back on over to whatculture.com and follow me on Twitter @YouRuinsThings. Until next time, however, bye!